goes the...
Welcome back to the TD Show. Another busy day ahead. Of course, a lot of NFL talk. We'll recap last weekend, talk about NFC, NFC championship games coming up this weekend. Have a little Manning-Brady showdown most fans were looking for. We'll break down the newly approved MLB replay system. In hour 2, we'll talk college basketball, including UK's last-second loss at Arkansas earlier this week. We'll touch on high school basketball. Both the Hornets and Lady Hornets got defeated by Adair County last night, but they're looking to rebound tonight against the South Warren Spartans. Also hang around for the 4th segment, as we'll be talking about a new law which allows hunters to night hunt coyotes year-round. We'll try to get in a couple phone calls along the way this morning. I'll give you my weekly guarantee. Daniel here will provide you with a little what to watch this upcoming week. And you can't forget 2 minutes with Paula Dan coming up in the second hour of the show. I believe Dan has a recipe that will keep you warm in this cold weather.
Don't forget, you can reach us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheTDShow. Our Twitter handle is @TheTDShow. You can also email the show at tdshow@outlook.com. And of course, you can listen to us live at Spreaker.com/user/TDShow. Or any of our recorded episodes. All 3 weeks are going to be on there. It's Spreaker.com/user/TDShow. And after today's show's air, you should be able to watch it all at youtube.com/user/MedcalfTDShow. Please don't forget to vote on our Facebook poll that we've got up today. Whose career would you rather have, Peyton Manning or Tom Brady? Speaking of Manning and Brady, before we give out any opinions on what's going to happen, let's start with what they did last week. It was a great weekend of NFL football.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start with the last game of the weekend, the Denver San Diego game. Denver won 24-17 over San Diego, and it played out like we both thought it would. We both thought Denver would walk away pretty easily, in which they ended up doing. And I think the biggest play of the game was in the fourth quarter there when they had the 3rd and 17.
Mm-hmm.
They were backed up. I think they were on like the 15 of the 20, and Manning throws a first down pass to Julius Thomas. Then they have a 3rd and 6. They get another first down. That pretty much ends the game there.
Yeah, he had 3 back-to-back third down conversions on that drive of what we think about third down and long. I think he had a 3rd and 10 or 11, a 3rd and 17, and then a 3rd and 6 conversion. All 3 in a row there in that fourth quarter last drive to seal the game, let him take a knee and end it.
Yeah, kind of put a nail in the coffin of the naysayers that said he can't play in the postseason. You know, he folds under pressure. I mean, while they were up a touchdown, that 3rd and 17 is pretty big because they don't get that. They punt the ball, and the Chargers had the ball at midfield down touchdown with 4 minutes left. So.
Yeah, in his last 3 playoff games, he was 3-0. He was 1 and done in 3 playoff games prior to this. But looked good. Looked really good on Sunday afternoon.
Then you have New England beating Indy 43-22. Game was never really close. Not much because of what Brady did, more so because of what the running game did, but not
and the lack of what Andrew Luck did.
Yeah,
it's like I told you last week, and we'll get into it a little more. When Luck turns the ball over, they don't win a whole lot, and turnover is what he did.
Yeah, I picked the underdog Indy on that one. Obviously, I was wrong. Seattle beat New Orleans 23-15 last week. Last play of that game, wow, for those who didn't see it, Colston goes out for an out route. There's about 8 seconds left on the clock, I believe, and he has to tiptoe to catch the ball anyways. But instead of falling out of bounds, he throws it forward laterally across the field, and then there's the penalty and the 10-second runoff, and the game's over. But he goes out of bounds. They have 8 seconds, which is possibly time for 2 plays.
2 plays, or a play in, 2 plays.
Yeah, from their own 37, I believe it would have been. And right after the game, everybody was kind of like, man, what was Colston thinking? And it wasn't until 2 days later that their coach finally comes out and says, you know what, that's the play that I drew up. Yeah. Kind of throwing him under the bus for 2 days there.
I don't know that he if it's that. I don't think that's how he drew it up. If he drew it up, I'm not sure that wasn't Sean Payton stepping up, taking over the team. He does like to come up with some crazy plays. He's got a little bit of, maybe a little bit of Gus Malzahn in him, drawing up some weird plays and some crazy trick plays. But that one was not really well thought out. The probability for success was pretty low, a lot lower than I think that if you were to just step out of bounds and chuck one at the end zone, maybe chuck two at the end zone.
Yeah, well, I mean, with 8 seconds left and Drew Brees as your quarterback, seems like you go out of bounds there, run another out route real fast, and then you have you got an easy 20-yard pass at the end zone. I was flabbergasted to say the least. Then we had San Francisco 23-10 over Carolina. We had Kaepernick running it in and ripping off his Superman jersey, mocking Cam Newton. That game kind of went like we thought it would. It was low scoring. Neither quarterbacks had to do a lot, but I think it came down to, like I said, Crabtree playing a lot better. Antoine Bolden really impressive on a lot of third down plays. Just Kaepernick had a lot more weapons to work with than Cam Newton.
Yeah, if you look at the Panthers 49ers game, I guess I was kind of wrong in the way I looked at it in one sense, as I said whoever could be the better passer and the better quarterback during the game would end up winning. Look at the numbers. Newton was 16 for 25, 267 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Kaepernick was 15 for 28, 196 yards and a touchdown. The 2 interceptions really hurt the Panthers, and this is a stat that kind of stood out to me. What caused their downfall? They were 0-3 in the red zone. They were all goal-to-go situations. They weren't like first and 10 to 20. They were all first and goal beyond the 10-yard line. You couldn't convert on any of them. Now they did score 10 points, but that was on a long play, their touchdown and the field goal. They just couldn't convert when they got in the red zone. For the most part, I thought that Newton threw the ball a little bit better than Kaepernick did. Just couldn't get it done.
Yeah, and I mean, I've said it from the beginning of the playoffs. San Francisco's a team that I like to win, and I said it last week, I'll say it again. 6 of the last 8 Super Bowl champions have played in Wild Card Weekend, and they're looking like a team that could repeat that. Also, something I forgot to mention last week that I meant to, a listener of the show brought this to my attention. 5 of the last Super Bowl winners have lost Week 15. You say that's probably a stat that don't have much to do with anything. But just to look at the 2 teams that did lose in Week 15 that are left remaining, Denver and New England. So you got on one hand, if San Francisco wins, they should win according to one stat, and on the other, winner Denver and New England.
I'd like to touch on a couple more things about that Panthers 49ers game. I really thought that while I've never been high on Kaepernick, maybe my criticism for him has been unjust, I don't know. But he did kind of learn his role a little bit, I think, in that Panthers game. He only ran the ball 8 times for 15 yards. 1 was a touchdown, a designed run. The rest of them were he had to get out of the way. He wasn't looking to run first. He was looking to get the ball to someone else, which is one of the problems I've had with him throughout his career. Is he tends to run first, then decide to throw it when it's too late. But he didn't do that as much this game. Like I said, only ran 8 times. They ran 34 rushing plays for 126 yards. They ran more rushing plays than they did passing plays, and they were 2 of 4 in the red zone, 2 of 2 when they were within the 10-yard line. So they got it done in the red zone, and Kaepernick kind of learned what it takes, I think, a little bit to be an NFL quarterback for more than one season, more than to just have some sustainability in the NFL.
Yeah, I feel like that your dislike for Kaepernick leads you to underrate him just a tad. I mean, and even if it's not himself, he's in a system where he knows what he has to do, and they are successful around him. I mean, I think Alex Smith is a really good quarterback, and he had success there. But I believe that this system they have is really just built around a multi-threat quarterback like him. While if he went somewhere else, he might not be as good of a quarterback. But in the system he is in, I believe he's really good, and I believe they have a pretty good shot at winning this weekend and winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I mean, there's got to be something said about this new, triple threat quarterback, multi-threat quarterback that we're talking about. If you look at it, you think we have four major contenders in the NFL that you would think about fitting that category. RG3, Russell Wilson, Kaepernick, Cam Newton, maybe Andrew Luck to a degree. He does
Johnny
get out
Manziel.
and run. Manziel's not there yet. But three of the four have won at least one playoff game. So we're going to get to see probably the two best mobile quarterbacks as far as ability to put the ball down on the ground and run like a running back this weekend. We'll look ahead to that in a little bit.
Don't forget about another multi-threat quarterback that has won a playoff game recently, Tim Tebow.
That's true. It's been a couple years.
Just throwing it out there.
And it was his arm that won that game for him.
One of the few Heisman winning quarterbacks to win a playoff game in the past 20 years.
Yep.
But let's look ahead to tomorrow, the New England-Denver AFC Championship game. Denver's 5-point favorite. Last I looked, over/under on the game's 57. How do you feel about this game?
Yeah, let me tell you a little bit about what the Patriots did last week, and I think that'll lead into what I think they're going to be able to do this week. Patriots last week only ran 25 passing plays. Brady was 13 for 25, no touchdowns, but he did throw 298 yards. Rushing was the key to the game. Blunt ran it 24 times for 166 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, if they get 166 yards out of a running back and 4 touchdowns out of a running back this week, going to be trouble. I don't think that they can do that against the front seven of Denver. I think their front seven is a lot better than their secondary. So I think that's going to be a little trouble for them. They were 5 for 6 in the red zone, 83%, 5 for 5 when within the 10-yard line. Now, when I look ahead to this week, let's look at the matchup, what the Broncos do versus what the Patriots do as far as statistics this season. The Broncos lead in just about every category, which you would expect since how they have the best offense probably of all time. Yards per game, the Broncos are averaging 457 yards. Patriots only averaging 384. Passing yards per game, Broncos are averaging 340 yards to 255 yards for the Patriots. Here's the stat that's kind of on the increase for the Patriots. Rushing yards per game. The Broncos average 129.1 rushing yards per game, while the Patriots only average 117.1. Now, we know the past couple weeks, Patriots have ran the ball very well. Probably something they're going to look to do, especially playing a quarterback like Peyton Manning. What you want to do is keep the ball out of his hands, and they've been capable of doing that the past couple weeks.
Yeah, all things considered, you got to think the running games are pretty equal coming into this game.
Yeah, as we say, Denver is the only team in this matchup that has a 1,000-yard rusher. Noshawn Marino has 1,157 yards, I think. They have a little more spread out. They're rushing in New England. They have 2 rushers. They have about 700 yards. Third down conversions, the Broncos have been better by about 10%, 46% to 37%. And the time of possession, how long they keep the game, about equal. They both keep the game a little over half, 31 to 33 minutes. What I think is going to happen this week is going to be the Broncos are going to score fast. They're going to run the ball, play off that with play action, and Peyton's going to be on point. I do think that the Broncos defense has struggled in the past to defend the pass. They're going to have Harris out, which is a big problem for them. We know that Belichick and Brady are going to key on that. They're going to have Champ Bailey in there, who has been a great shutdown corner most of his career, but he's getting old now. This week, I think he's going to have to cover Edelman out of the slot. He's going to have a little more help inside. And I think if they can get him to cover that slot receiver and kind of fill that role, which is something he's not used to doing, but if he can do that effectively, the Broncos should have no problem shutting down the Patriots.
Yeah, I mean, their defense surprised me last week. I'm not real high on the Denver defense. I think they'll struggle this week, but they surprised me last week against the Chargers, so I guess we'll see on that front. Something I wanted to look at real quick, the last matchup between Denver and New England. Denver goes up 24-0 at halftime, and everybody's thinking, man, this game's going to be a blowout, and then we know how it ends with Brady coming back, winning 34-31 in overtime. Manning only had 150 yards and a 52.8 completion percentage in that game, which, I mean, the win definitely played a factor in that. But if you look at Brady, he completed 34 of 50 passes for 344 yards with 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. So, I mean, I know it's supposed to be clear, no wind, no rain this weekend, which will probably favor Denver. Then looking back, last couple times that Denver won the Super Bowl, 97-98, Elway had Terrell Davis in the backfield, as you know, a Georgia alum. They're also going to have a Georgia alum in the backfield this week in Noshawn Moreno. And it's career high this year in rushing yards, which you said, a little over 1,000 yards. And like you said, I think that'll be a big factor in the game, how each team runs.
Now that Elway and that Elway offense was a little bit different. They ran more of an option style offense. We know Elway was a great passer, but at the time he was probably the biggest quarterback in the league. Could put his head down and run over you, just as Davis was too. He's kind of a bigger back, could run over people. It was more of a power running, play action option game. Whereas now we got a drop back multi-read game from Peyton Manning. Completely opposite styles, but just as effective, I think.
Yeah, and like you said, the rushing game, LeGarrette Blount, 2 carries for 13 yards that last matchup, and man, what a different running back he is now. Ran for 166 last week with 4 touchdowns.
4 touchdowns.
So, the Denver defense will really have to prepare looking at tape from other games as opposed to the last time they played him when he virtually didn't play a role. Did you see what Welker said this week about comparing Brady and Manning? He said it's essentially like comparing Picasso and Michelangelo, comparing 2 great quarterbacks. Found that interesting.
I don't know if I agree with the reference. I see what he's saying. Both masters of their craft. Their crafts are so similar, though. Picasso and Michael. Well, I got off a little geek moment, I guess, there. But Picasso and Michelangelo's styles were completely different, whereas Manning's and Brady's are been pretty similar throughout the years.
Then something I mentioned to you earlier, I can't remember if it was this morning or yesterday, but top 8 scoring offenses, Denver has the highest of all time, and the top 8 scoring offenses have never won a Super Bowl, which is somewhat surprising. I mean, obviously they say defense wins championships, but you would think one out of the top 8 scoring offenses would have won a Super Bowl. And then another stat I seen, in each postseason matchup between Brady and Manning, the winner has went on to win the Super Bowl.
Yep, I didn't know that for certain, but I was watching some highlights of some games. They've been showing it on ESPN all week, and thinking about it. And the last time he beat him in the playoffs, there he did go and win the Super Bowl. So I think whoever wins this game is going to have a great shot at winning the Super Bowl, just because of their weapons. We'll talk about the second game and maybe get into the matchup problems that might arise for the winner.
While we're on the subject, though, let's talk about the poll question. Whose career would you rather have, Tom Brady or Peyton Manning?
Oh, that's a good question, especially for guys like us who never gonna play NFL, never gonna have them.
I mean, you both got lots of money.
Never gonna have $1 million. Neither one of us are. But and they've got plenty. It's what you look at. I mean, Peyton Manning and Tom Brady both probably gonna go to the Hall of Fame first time they're eligible. Both kind of on the hierarchy of greater quarterbacks. I do think, though, if you were going to build a Mount Rushmore of quarterbacks, you have to put Peyton Manning on that Mount Rushmore. Tom Brady, he's going to be one of those guys that maybe they mention on the plaque describing Mount Rushmore, but I don't think his picture gets up there. I don't think he makes it into that top 4 category. I'm probably going to upset some people saying that. It's kind of like almost a civil war breaks out in this country when you when you pick sides between Brady and Manning. I'm going with Manning. Just one of the greatest quarterbacks ever.
Here's how I see it. You both got lots of money either way. If you're Brady, you got 3 rings on your finger. If you're Manning, you got 1. You got a good-looking wife either way. You're successful off the field either way. You know, Manning's done many commercials. He's done Saturday Night Live. Does a lot of things.
Owns a whole lot of Papa John's.
Yeah, owns a whole lot. And then
built 2 children's hospitals.
And then Tom Brady does the more elite commercials for things, you know, that guys like me and you don't use or whatever.
Yeah.
But
we're not reading the Squire magazine.
One of the things it came down to for me is that Manning got to play under Tony Dungy for a lot of his career, and Brady's been under Belichick for all of his career. And I was sitting here thinking, man, Tony Dungy's a pretty laid-back,
nice guy.
Yeah,
everybody loves. Nobody. I've never heard anyone say a bad thing about Tony Dungy.
And then you hear that Belichick is that way off camera, but the only way we've ever seen him is on camera.
Yeah.
So when it came down to it for me, I chose, hey, I'd rather hang out with Tony Dungy for most of my career than Belichick. So I went Peyton Manning as well. Let's get into the San Francisco-Seattle game. And just to remind you, that question is up on Facebook, the poll question. Just go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/the TD Show, and you can vote on it there. If you have any comments or questions on it, we'll share those. I know Bryant Stockton said he'd take either. He'd take Painter's career, who was Peyton Manning's backup for a while, if he could have it.
We got a tweet about the art reference here. At least Brian Stockton understands what I'm talking about. A lot of people out there probably didn't get it. He says Welker's comparison is as silly as comparing Rembrandt to Jackson Pollock. Exactly like I said.
Nerd jokes.
Nerd jokes.
Hashtag nerd jokes.
Hashtag nerd jokes if you want to get in on that. Yeah, you know, one other thing as we look at the poll question right now, it's 80-20. Everybody picks Peyton Manning. I think part of that is, you know, you want someone who strives for perfection. You want someone who works hard, and he works harder than anybody else in the country, in the NFL, guaranteed. But at the root of him, he's almost like a normal guy.
Yeah.
I know people. I heard Cowherd say something about today about he didn't want a normal guy. He's not a normal guy in the sense of his work ethic, but I think I could get along with him. I think I could talk to Peyton Manning.
I could see myself hanging out with Peyton Manning before I could see myself hanging out with Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think me and Peyton Manning would get along. I think we could sit on the porch and talk. We might have to, you know, go sit in a high rise somewhere and talk to Tom Brady.
You could take his Buick.
Style. Yeah. Yeah. Let's look ahead. Let's talk about what a lot of people are thinking might be another great matchup this week. It's going to be the premier matchup. Showed the later game.
Is that Stanford versus USC?
Yeah.
Oh no, it's San Francisco versus Seattle. My bad.
The rivalry is as old as that. But we're going to look at. Let me talk about what happened last week with each team. Seahawks won, but they did not look super impressive to me. I thought that they could destroy the Saints. I mean, they beat them, but I thought that they didn't look really good, except for their running game. Their running game, Marshawn Lynch had 146 yards. They had 277 yards of total offense. Marshawn Lynch had more than half of their offense. He also had more rushing yards than the Saints had, which says some good things about the rushing defense that the Seahawks have. Something that I've been kind of worried about this year. I know they could defend the pass. They've also been able to show that their linebacker core can step up and stop the run very well. If you have a run game, you could set up your passing game, which is exactly what the Seahawks did. They only threw only completed 9 passes for 103 yards and no TDs, but they didn't need it. They just needed those few passes to keep the defense spread a little bit so they could open up holes for the running game. 49ers last week, we already talked about what they did. Kaepernick wasn't great as a quarterback, but as a game manager, as a team leader, they did a great job. Took care of Carolina. Let me give you the numbers for the matchup this year and what I think they made to this game, and then we'll discuss it. Seahawks and the 49ers stats are pretty much identical. I mean, they are so close. Let me read them to you. Seahawks, 339 yards per game. 49ers, 323 yards per game. Seahawks pass it for 202 yards per game. 49ers, 186 yards per game. Seahawks rush it for 137 yards per game. 49ers rush it for 136 yards per game. Seahawks are 37% on third down. 49ers, 36.5% on third down. Time of possession, absolutely equal. 30 minutes a game. They keep exactly half a game, both of them. Seahawks defense is better in every single category, except for one. Rushing yards per game, they allow 101.6 on average. They did step up and stop a good rushing attack last week, and they did a great job on that. So I think maybe they've got that there. Here's the kicker. This is what I think is the big deal. They've only lost one game at home. They're playing at home. We know how loud it gets up there and how much better their defense in particular looks at home. I like the Seahawks in this game. I think that Russell Wilson is a little bit better passer. We know they're going to have equal run games. It's who can complete the most passes, and I think that's going to be the difference. They both have great defenses. Both have been rushing the ball exceptionally well. I like Russell Wilson to throw the ball a little bit better than Kaepernick. Maybe get probably just one passing touchdown, maybe 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions, and win the game by about 7.
Yeah, well, it's San Francisco or Seattle's 3.5-point favorite. Over under on it's 39.5. I disagree with you. I like San Francisco. I have San Francisco 20-17. I just feel like, much like I did last week, Seattle has a great defense, much like Carolina had. I just believe that San Francisco has so many weapons on their side of the ball. You got Bolden, Gore, Davis, Crabtree, Kaepernick, and you talked about the Seattle offense not looking impressive last week. They haven't looked impressive for a while.
No, his downfield passing
right.
just dropped off the second half of the season tremendously.
And of course, an argument I've been hearing this week is that Wilson only had 9 completions for 103 yards against the New Orleans, so they'll probably lose this game. But looking back on it, he only had 8 completions in a 29-3 win over San Francisco. So it's not like they're asking him to do a lot.
And when you're rushing for 277 yards, you don't need to throw it that many times.
And then in another game this year, he only had 10 completions in a win over St. Louis, which is a good ball club. He's not asked to do a lot, and I feel like if the rushing game and the defense hold up, they can win. I just don't know that. While the defense is the best defense in the NFL, I don't think there's any argument of that. You have to attack San Francisco from so many different fronts in order to shut them down. I just feel like San Francisco comes out on top. And I believe this is the complete opposite of the New England-Denver game, in which it's based solely around the quarterbacks. I believe this game is based solely around everybody but the quarterback, around the defense and the rushing game.
Yeah, I heard a question someone asked this week: who would you rather have fourth quarter to win a game, Russell Wilson or Colin Kaepernick? And the answer was it didn't really matter. It's whose weapons around them what you want. A lot of people were picking the 49ers' weapons. Personally, I'd take Wilson as the quarterback, but you can't argue with the weapons. I see your point there that 49ers.
The one thing to watch is if they start calling the game close, which they haven't done with either of these teams all year.
And they don't do it Seattle a lot.
Right.
Crowd noise.
But if they was to start calling it close, a little touching, pass interference, San Francisco could end up running away with it.
Yeah, Seattle's all about the bump and run coverage, maybe a little more bump than run, and that could become a problem. We're running out of time here. 2 great matchups this weekend. We'd like to touch on them a little bit more. Be sure to check out our Facebook poll. Send us your questions on Twitter. Don't forget to refresh your browser here in about 3 minutes. We'll be back.